honesty. This book is fundamentally about honesty, right? The more honest and transparent your business is, or your practices are, the more money you will reap in this next century. We got a special episode for everyone today. But before we indulge you, hit the subscribe button. Regardless, hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button if you're watching us with your ears on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. There's other podcast apps that we're on, but they don't, dare I say it? They don't matter.
Fuck.
Didn't mean to, but let's call it what it is. You know what I'm saying? I gotta shut this. Like an old man. I'm like, I gotta shut my ringer off. Let me turn my flashlight.
Look at it at an angle. Like.
Yeah, you ever see those people that come into the restaurant and they're just like, I can't see the menu.
Oh, yeah. Flashlight. Fuck it.
What?
Yeah,
What's
and then
the
it's in your
specials?
face.
What's the specials? Do you know what the specials are tonight?
It's like
I'm like the table next to them. Ariel's like, oh my God. You know what? It's like, you know when I think that happens? It's like you're like the dude from X-Men, Cyclops, and you're just like laser beaming people with your eyeballs without regard.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Fucking hate that shit.
But we got a special episode today. We were talking the other day, trying to switch things up. Keep it real. The solo episodes just, it was getting hard to refresh the energy. So we were kicking around some things, and I read books. Gilmar doesn't read books too often.
I'm reading one now, but
he reads
very slow going.
He knows how to read.
Yeah, I know how to read.
But it's the habit of book reading.
Yes.
This is a book.
Yep.
And sometimes you can read them. So I was like, you know what? This dog's just ripping up the carpet right in front of me. But anyway, so we're back to the book thing. Rainbow, sit down. Today, we're going to get into a book called The Sovereign Individual. I've read this book 2 times. Not back to back, but I did read it 2 times in close, succession.
Nice.
Right. So I figured the reason I picked this book, Gilmar, and I conveniently, like this morning, I got up early and I just like, oh my God, all the listeners they're gonna think I didn't actually read this book, so I'm gonna bend the pages and I'm gonna put all these inconvenient, highlight tabs and actually highlight the book. So it looks like I read it.
You got thrown on the floor a little bit.
That's what it is. Yeah. Because what always people sometimes be saying?
What will they be saying?
They're like, you're too preachy. Or you don't know about that. I don't actually. Nobody said that.
Yeah, I was like, looking at you like, what? Who said that?
Yeah. Nobody said that.
I don't think anyone said that.
Anyway, but, to avoid sounding, preachy or things like that, I was like, hey, like sometimes I'm dropping facts and knowledge on the podcast that people have asked me about, they followed up on, like, hey, I heard you say such and such, like, where'd you get that, or what was this, and good secondary questions have come from that, right? So I was like, maybe there's something here, and then I picked this book because before I blow your minds, melt your minds with this book, that if you read this book, your life will be changed forever. The unfortunate side of things was this book was written in, I believe 96 or 97. Yeah, copyright 1997. Printed and published by Touchstone.
Shout out.
Good guys over there. Maybe. And this book has been revised. It doesn't look like they revised any of the information, but it looks like they put it into paperback in April 2020.
Oh.
I don't know if they did it on April 20th, 2020.
Shout out.
Nothing.
420.
Crickets.
No, yeah.
But had you read this book in... Now let me finish my thought. Jesus Christ, this is a struggle.
What?
If you finished this book in 97 and had you read this, you'd be a rich person. And that's why I'm covering this book. Because there are other books that are coming out in 2021 or 2022, that could potentially make you a rich man or lady.
Yeah.
Maybe impact your life with, great positivity. As this book would have if you read it in 1997. But 8-year-old Andrew
Right.
wasn't getting down. You know what I'm saying? Like, I asked my mom for the book, but she was like, you know what? I'm gonna get you the Bernstein Bears. Like, you need to step it up. And I'm like, Mom, I can read this book.
Captain Underpants.
So yeah, Captain Underpants. Oh boy, what is it? This thing's like touching me right here. Like, I felt like somebody was like,
fight it, bro.
I was like, what's up, dude?
Fight it.
I was like, what?
Don't let it fight you, bro.
Dude?
You gotta fight it.
Anyway, before we lose everybody, the sovereign individual mastering the transition from the information age, or from the industrial age to the information age. It says mastering the transition to the information age. What they're saying, from industrialized America to information age, which is what we are now nuts deep in, right? Because it's 2021. This book was written in 97.
Yeah.
Do the math, right? We've been here a few years already.
Years.
So, like, it's just an interesting book. Well, one of the I don't know how to explain it. This book just takes into consideration the past, couple different situations in the past. I'm talking like really, really far back in history, and then certain market conditions that we had in, pre-2000, which were when this book was written. And the book was written to basically describe like what conditions we had, what conditions were going to present themselves, and then reasoning in the past why these things would happen, right? So it goes into talk about like the feudal age and things like kings and, warlords and chivalry and stuff like that, and goes on to say like, well, the information age is going to decentralize the power again. Right now we're very central in power with the governments.
Right.
But of the turn of, when the turn of the century, the internet and everything like that, it wasn't inconceivable for someone like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk to come from, somewhere in the middle of nowhere in South Africa to all of a sudden you're like the CEO of
the world.
The world. So a sovereign individual basically is someone that is free from the state. It's not a combative thing. It's not necessarily like you're like attacking the government. You're just free to move around. Like Colin Yerkinson is who, ultimately, shout out to Colin. He's the one who said I should, check this this nerd novel out. And he was right. And like Colin would be he would be a low-level sovereign individual. He's moving across country lines. He's living wherever he wants to live. He's working from his computer. Like, he doesn't pay taxes because he doesn't have to, because of the way he's living his life.
Yeah.
Different things like that. So, I mean, if anybody that's listening to this show that gets into the entrepreneur space, or, maybe you want to own a business, maybe you just want to be more successful than what you are, like, this book would be a great way to kind of like get you thinking outside the box.
Right.
I firmly believe that anybody can think any type of way, right? You can teach positivity, you can teach pessimism, you can teach money, you can teach all this stuff. It's all muscles. And people are just like, oh, no, I'm just not good at that. Like, I just don't think that way. It's like, no, you just don't like try to think that way. Every idea starts out small.
Right.
Right. I have a lot of ideas in the day, and they're all like, boop, pop in and out, in and out. And then every now and then one of those, catches a little extra material and becomes a little bit bigger of a stone, and then becomes a boulder. And then sometimes next thing you know, you have a podcast. Right. So I'd like to think that having ideas and executing on them is something that people can learn. And like, that's a skill that people can learn.
Yeah.
Right. Having ideas and like knowing how, like, I'm now at 33 years old. When I have ideas, sometimes I'm not good at picking and choosing what are like to keep going with. So I take advice from other people, but I'm usually pretty good at having an idea, knowing what it's going to take to put it together, and then just doing it. Right. Whereas some other people just, they think about all the risks. They think about all the downsides. I only really think about the upsides.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, hey, if I work really hard and I put together the right information and I keep at it, it'll win no matter what. Right. So I think like all that is stuff you can learn and fortunately for you, like this book is a great facilitator of thinking really differently.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this book because there was a couple of times where I'm like, that's a good point. Like I could see that because this guy was writing this book for, 2025, 2050. He like the time between 2000 and 2050, like this book is mainly, like the first half of this century, basically.
Right.
So I really think if you're going to be successful in the first half of this century, which we're already almost halfway through, you want to pick up this book and, read it. Even though it was written a long time ago, it'll make things very clear to you.
Yeah.
And, we'll get into a little bit and talk about it, and you'll see, like, holy shit, like, if I'm going to give you a little bit of the things that it points out in the world, and you'll be like, wow, if it points out that, it's going to point out a lot more things. And it's definitely made me a little bit more comfortable with certain things like cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It made me really comfortable with cryptocurrency. I'm not even kidding. Before, the cryptocurrency money to me was like, hey, this is an investment, but it's also kind of a gamble. If I lose all this money, that's going to suck. But in my mental state, I was already prepared for, like, if that does happen, I knew that was a risk. And I thought it through. Of course, some people are like, that's a risk, but it's never going to happen. Like, I actually, like, internalized it. Like, if that does happen, how am I going to react? Probably not well. So when this book was written at, like he says, as I write, but it was, 1997. This chapter is titled The Transition of the Year 2000. As I write, the top 15% of the world's population have an average per capita income of $21,000 annually. The remaining 85% of the world have an average of just $1,000 income annually. That huge hoard advantage from the past is bound to dissipate under new conditions of the information age. Right?
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
In my opinion. We're saying, like, in 1996, like, $21,000 a year. I think if I had to guess, at least domestically in the United States, I would say the annual per capita income is probably like high 30s a year right now.
High 30s.
Maybe like 41,000.
Something like that.
I would think. But $1,000 against $21,000, like, that's, it just, I don't know. It's kind of crazy that only 15% of the world was just doing just that well.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest were doing even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it starts the book off just being blatantly honest about how things are. And what this book talks about a lot are things that we still currently feel. So it's like it's talking about how things were being felt in 96 at this intellectual level, which me and you weren't really intellectual at that age.
I was 2 years old.
You know what I'm saying? Like 2-year-old you.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been a struggle, but I think you could have got through it.
Speaking Spanish, I don't even know English at 2 years old. So.
The state will treat increasingly autonomous individuals, its former citizens, with the same range of ruthlessness and diplomacy as it heretofore displayed in dealing with other governments. Right? So to pull that out a little bit more, like when we're dealing with Jeff Bezos and say when Steve Jobs was still around or anything, like, do you ever notice how the government is like, whatever you want, Bezos?
Yeah.
Like, they pay a negative tax rate because of how that's set up with the government. It's like, okay, you guys created this many jobs. We're taxing every one of those people. So you guys don't technically have to pay these so the companies in our country or in the world are already so powerful. Like, this is 1996. We're in 2021 now.
Yeah.
The companies are now actively negotiating with our government to be like, right? And we've talked about this openly on the podcast before. The biggest dick in the room is Apple.
Yeah.
Because they shut down the App Store and everybody in the fucking world has an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck accessing your bank account.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For
good
real.
luck doing that Venmo transaction, bro. Apple's got you.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I was like, damn, I read this and I immediately highlighted it. And it was like, Jesus Christ. Like, that is how things are right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a minimal kind of a thing. It's everyone down to Colin. Like, Colin isn't directly negotiating with the government, or Colin's like Bitcoin for, like, peers. Like, but those guys are doing things with like lawyers and like property and stuff to like avoid paying taxes so that they can travel more freely. And they're like, some of them are getting dual citizenships, and you know, they're in like a way free from the state. Like, if the government makes a decision, they're just like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, cool,
Doesn't affect me.
whatever, right? Talk to one of those guys about politics. They're like, yeah, whatever. Dude, like, whatever, dude. Crypto to the moon.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
they don't care, because they literally understand that as the years go on, and we'll get into the crypto environment, like, the governments will have less and less power, and you will have the ability to negotiate with them.
Yeah.
Instead of them being like, hey, you're in Pennsylvania, pay up, or you're going to jail, right? Or not. I mean, I don't think,
I have a question real quick about that.
Go for it.
So with avoiding not being tied down to a certain place or location, I've seen that a lot of, rich people, millionaires, whatever, don't have any assets, really. They, like, let go of everything. Is that kind of a good way to avoid paying taxes and being tied down to a certain place?
That's a really good question. And maybe we can get like a tax guy, like somebody that specializes in like tax deferment. I will elaborate on it, though.
Okay.
I can't go into like laws and things like that, because
Right.
obviously I'm not like a lawyer.
Yeah, or a liar.
So basically, the way that kind of works is there's a couple different ways you can go about it. You can, own property, and then like your property holds your wealth, and then like that's taxed differently, and there's deferment, and you can kind of like keep rolling it until you die. In basic summary, there's a lot more detail to it than that. But then there's also like the thought in being like, if I don't own a building or I don't own land, I don't have to pay taxes on that land. I don't have to pay the government taxes to have that piece of property, like that land. Like, I don't have to pay taxes on the car I bought. I don't have to pay taxes on things like that. And then those guys will, in return, pay for a lot of things with credit cards. And a lot of them 0 interest, very low interest, and then those credit cards have points. So the things they're buying with the credit cards, then they're getting these points, and then they use the points to like pay for their travel, and then they're traveling for free.
Right.
So it's like very soon after, what they're doing is like they're creating like this kind of like financial ecosystem for themselves. They're not looking at just dollars. They're looking at, the credit card points, like I'm accruing, and knowing how to use those properly is a huge, huge part of that whole system. But getting into like really, really rich people, they own stuff. They just own stuff differently. They'll start businesses, and then the businesses, like the way those businesses are taxed, and then the money never really comes to them in so many ways. It kind of just goes to another business, and then it's like utilized there, and then they like expense the money, and then, it's crucial. I mean, that's like, we could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
Which we can.
That's a good one. I just love this shit.
we might want to write that down for like a good podcast, like tax deferment. Like,
tax deferment.
Just like nerding out on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about it.
I know plenty of people that do that for a living, and it will be interesting to see which one of them agrees to come onto a podcast and talk about it.
Oh, that'd be
because
sick.
I think it's unfortunate that that's looked at as a negative, right, by a lot of people. I don't agree avoiding taxes. Like, I think, we all need police, we all need firefighters, you want to contribute to the schools and things like that, but governments are wasteful, and this book goes into that in great detail. It's the larger the government gets, or not even necessarily the government, the organization, because the Catholic Church used to hold, a decent amount of power in the world. And the book talks about that and how it fell apart. And basically, when it reached its peak in size, there was so much waste that it literally ate itself apart. And that's kind of where we're at right now. The governments are just like boundlessly corrupt. Like, if you think the United States government's not corrupt, you got your head up your ass. All the governments are corrupt.
Yeah.
Their job is like, the government is basically like legalized, and it's not even like, that's not even the right word. The government is basically like the mafia. It's a mafia. they promise us protection in return for money.
Yeah.
And then they waste it all. It's not spent on what we want it to be spent. Like, there's a lot of studies and financial, examinations of like taxation and size of governments. And like, as you increase budgets for things, it's like, hey, you want to increase the budget for schools? Somehow the military ends up with like a good chunk of that every time.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
It's pretty funny. So it's like
millions.
all these people are like, we need to do this. We need to raise taxes for healthcare. It's like, if you raise taxes for healthcare, somehow the military ends up with 50% of that.
Yeah.
And the 50% is like a random number, but it's like a large chunk of it just goes to defense.
Yeah.
Because your country is always most concerned with defense.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's a real thing or if it's like something they've created to think like we need to protect ourselves from, and then they spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's so many different agendas and, people and things in there that just like are going different ways that it's just going to be wasteful. Like, you are privy to like a lot of our like upper level business conversations. Like you overhear them, or you see this on site, or you're filming or whatever. And like, you see how, even when we have disagreements internally, like, we're still on the same page, so we can still get a lot done.
Yeah.
Imagine if like the 3 top people at our company were just like completely different agendas and we were fighting against each other. How much money would we put into this company? And you'd be fucking out of a job. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's our government.
Yeah, true.
Cheers. So, getting back into what I highlighted, we believe as the modern nation state decomposes, the later day barbarians will increasingly come to exercise power behind the scenes. Groups like the Russian mafia, which basically were, the bones of the former Soviet Union. People don't realize, like, everybody's like, oh, the Russian mafia is like the worst. It's like, yeah, because they were like legit running government. They were running the show. They weren't just doing, racketeering some little stuff. They were in charge of the government.
Interesting.
And then like other ethnic criminal gangs, or like other organizations, drug lords, like renegade agencies, will all just like kind of like start to develop, right? And we have all of that. We have the cartel state in Mexico. Like, if you think Mexico's in charge of their own thing, you're mistaken. Read into it.
Yeah.
The United States, we have all kinds of stuff like that. Facebook, Google, Twitter, like all these organizations, they're everybody's controlling power for promises here. And when somebody's controlling power for promises, just mafia. Right? That's how I look at it. I'm like, I've always kind of seen it, not so clearly, but kind of had that feeling that I'm like, the government is just like, it's just like they're kind of just like not really doing anything. And so it's always been hard for me to kind of find a political place. A lot of people think I'm just like automatically conservative because I drive a diesel truck. But I heard something the other day that was like really cool from an author of a book that we'll probably also get into. And it was politically homeless was the term he used. He's like, I am politically homeless. I literally, like, my wife and I were driving in the car. I'm like, damn, I'm politically homeless. Because I believe in a lot of opposing views. Like, you have abortion on one side. Like, no, I don't agree with the conservatives on that at all. Like, but then like on the other side, like on the liberal side of things, it's like, I don't agree with like a lot of their points of view either. So it's like, how do I think anything is going to get done? And it's not just me that feels this way. It's like, I would think it's a lot of America.
I feel the same way.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a lot, like, and if so much of us feel this way and our government's decomposing, like, no doubt all these other organizations are going to pop up because people like you and I, like, although we're not going to like go join the Russian mafia, if over the time, like, an organization pops up that's like, hey, like, we're growing in power, we have our own little militia, like, we believe in the center stuff, we're going to like try and get a president into office, like, to like make things thing. And like, say like one of the right or the left, like, we're like, no, like, you can't do that. I'd be like, whoa. Who says we can't do that? Like, that'd be a reason to stand up and fight. So I don't necessarily look at like the whole, like, that's not necessarily a negative thing. It just means that like more smaller organizations are going to take over power instead of having like the United States as a whole, you're going to have like little mafias or like little militias and things like that. It's kind of cool. I don't know. Well, would you be in a militia?
I might. I also feel politically homeless. I just, I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I don't know where to go. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good to be.
Well, I mean, like we're reading this book.
Yeah.
So like we're going to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Is that bad or good? It doesn't matter because it is what it is. Like at the end of the day, you can't really. If you're upset about where you are or where the world is all the time, you're going to be upset all the time.
For sure.
Right? Because then it's just going to be how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I don't know. I don't get that. Maybe I just confuse people by saying
it's bad energy, bro.
It's bad juju.
Exactly.
Don't bring that shit around.
Yep.
Yeah, so that pretty much just reiterates what we were saying there. A
lot of good keynotes.
Yeah, so basically, right in the first part of the book here, it goes in. The authors of this book wrote 2 books before this. One closer to this book, and then one book in the 80s they wrote. All kind of like the same format, like analyzing the future.
Crazy.
And they were incredibly accurate.
It's crazy.
That they go through and they say like, they just, pretty much announce all the things they predicted, right?
What do these guys do as a profession? Were they philosophers?
No, they're economists. They're economists, I'm pretty sure. The authors of the book are James Dale Davison and Lord William Rees-Mogg.
They just thought all day, bro.
Yeah, Lord. Type that in. Lord.
Lorde or no?
No, E. So he's a real lord.
Okay, Lord William Reeves.
Rees. Reee.
Mogg.
That bro. Oh, black and white picture. British journalist. Let's pull up the wiki because it'll be right. All right. So William Rees-Mogg was a British newspaper journalist who was the editor of The Times from 1967 to 1981. Interesting. Cool. Go down to books. Click books. The crisis of world inflation, blood in the streets, investment profits in a world gone mad, and that was written in 1987. And a lot of the things I'm about to like kind of breeze over real quick because I do expect you to read the book,
right?
Gilmar.
And I will. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. I'm telling you a lot of good things. I'm basically like, I'm telling you how good the steak is.
I know. I don't want you to think that I'm not. I'm totally invested and into it, dude.
Oh, dude.
I appreciate.
Don't flex on me, dude.
I am not flexing on anyone.
Do you see your chest bumping out like
but
that?
I had to sit up. What do you mean?
Oh, that's what we're calling it now. Next time I sit up on somebody, dude, be like, "What are you doing, bro? I'm sitting up." Dude. What do you mean? What am I doing? Yeah. So I'll just like, I didn't highlight any of these, but I did think it was important enough to put a green sticky here, instead of a yellow one.
Maybe the whole page is important.
I'm not sure why I thought that. I read kind of obscure times. I was like, oh, maybe I'll use a green one on this page. It's so stupid.
Go Birds.
Basically, they said, we said that American predominance was in decline. Basically, they're saying what they said in 1987. So 10 years before this, they're confirming what they said came true. We said that American predominance was in decline, which would lead to economic imbalances and distress, including 1929-style stock market crash. Experts were all but unanimous in denying such a thing could happen. Yet within 6 months of October 1987, the world markets were convulsed by the most violent sell-off of the century. So, I mean, we'll give them credit for that, but 6 months isn't. You got to give people time to read the book.
Yeah, Jesus.
Jeez.
6 months, dude. You want me to read that shit next week?
Like, here's a good one. We told readers to expect the collapse of communism. So this was in 1987. Again, experts laughed. Yet in 1989, 2 years after the book was written, the events that no one could have predicted, the Berlin Wall fell as revolutions swept away communist regimes from the Baltic to Bucharest. We explained while the multi-ethnic empire the Bolshevik nomenclature inherited from the czars would inevitably crack apart. And at the end of December 1991, the hammer and sickle banner was lowered over the Kremlin for the last time, and the Soviet Union ceased to exist. So, like, this book that they wrote in 87, which I actually haven't read. I do own it. I haven't gotten to it yet. It did a good job predicting the fall of the Soviet Union, I guess.
Seems that way.
So, like, it goes into Africa here years before, and then also Oklahoma City bombing, like years before the Oklahoma bombing and the attempt to blow up the World Trade Center. Because if you don't know, someone tried to blow up the World Trade Center before somebody tried to fly a plane in it.
Yeah.
Or successfully executed building aviation.
Not funny. I'm kidding.
You got it.
I only know that because Biggie said that in a lyric. Trying to blow up like the World Trade.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
You're cultured.
A little bit.
So years before that all went down, we explained why the United States faced an upsurge in terrorism. So it sounds like we might need to cover that book.
Crazy.
And then, it's got like the war on drugs in here, Osama bin Laden. We could do an entire episode on Osama bin Laden.
I'd like that.
He worked for the CIA.
He did, yeah.
The Osama bin Laden was our boy.
Yeah.
We turned on him, and then he turned on us. Oops.
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 Wrong guy to turn on.
Oops. Right, dude? Would you like?
Out of everyone.
Dudes in Washington, we keep our promises.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Osama bin. Then we start getting into like the Y2K thing. We'll skip that because
the world never ended.
I'm reading about something like that now. I'm just sick and tired of it. Honestly, I think the Y2K was just. It's amazing how smart people can be so stupid sometimes. We'll get in. That's where we'll conclude that.
Okay.
Right. So I'll do this quote first. Machinery is aggressive. The weaver becomes a web. The machinist, a machine. If you do not use tools, they use you. Right? So what do you think that means?
AI, bro.
Yeah. Right? Machinery is aggressive. So if the government is a machine, right, and we basically misuse it, it'll weave its own web and then do its own purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So AI is a great point, but this was from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who I don't think AI was on his
Definitely not.
It. Ralph wasn't a big robot guy. Like he wasn't watching BattleBots or anything.
Doesn't seem like it.
Nah, he might have traded Yu-Gi-Oh cards, maybe Pokemon guy. I don't know.
I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh guys are more tech.
I don't know enough about either of those things, so I'm just gonna say.
Bro, I was heavy on Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yo.
So that's I speak for myself.
Yeah. Say less. So what is cool about this whole section is that it's just it's describing the level of technology and where it's heading and like the balance between, offense and defense and moving things forward. But one thing that we'll point out here is there's 2 points: equality and the predominance of the infantry, as well as advantages and disadvantages of the scale in violence. Right? So each one of these has like their own section. So we'll try and skip over it, speed read it, I guess. Weapons that are relatively cheap, that can be employed by non-professionals and enhance the military importance of infantry, tend to equalize power. Right? So for all those people out there that think we should get rid of guns, suck that.
Yeah.
Right? Just suck on that sentence because it just says it how it is. Weapons that are relatively cheap and that can be employed by non-professionals and enhance the military importance of infantry tend to equalize power. So we're talking like back in the day when you had a sword, you had to have money to have a sword made. And then you had to learn how to wield the sword, right? So everybody was still using spears and their fists to just kill each other. And then like those wars like that, they weren't wars. They were like so different than what we have now. Like we're not blowing down an entire city because like you got to get together people that can only fist fight with each other. And then like that's exhausting. Like that's only going to last a little while. Like, and then you're like, that costs a lot. You know, we don't really want to do that. So you really got to have a reason to get down on each other when everybody has a spear.
Right.
Right. If everybody's got an AR-15 and a handgun on their hip, how many people are fighting each other? Probably nobody. Right. Everybody's strapped. So it's just kind of like everybody knows the costs. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. Right. You know what somebody else could be holding.
Yeah.
Right. If I don't know you and I come up on you, I don't have cauliflower ear. You don't have cauliflower ear. Well, he doesn't look like much, but I don't look like much. So it's like, do I want to get into a tussle right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because this guy could ankle lock me and rip my fucking Achilles off right now.
Yeah,
He
who
could
knows?
be a black belt for all I know. A lot of my friends that are black belts don't look like much. So it's but the downside of that comparison is that you have to take years to learn to get to that level. Whereas with the rifle, I could hand my wife a rifle and 15 minutes later she's pretty well trained enough to chalk a few dudes out. So
yeah, I shot a gun for the first time ever last week, and
so nothing.
Yeah,
pro.
I learned it. not that hard.
Yo, Gilmore has the equality of infantry right now.
Fucking headshots. No,
so hitting down to the bottom here. This was a distinctly different circumstance from the Middle Ages when a farmer with a pitchfork, he could have not afforded more than that. He could scarcely have hoped to withstand a heavily armed knight on horseback. No one was writing in 1276 that all men were created equal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we got rifles everywhere. And what are we talking about all the time? Equality. Why? Because everybody's got a gun.
Yep.
Silence me. Not going to work. So that's just something to think about going into the next level of sovereignty, right? Eventually, and we'll get more into this, like the government's going to start shrinking and things are going to start changing even more so than they already have since 1997, that you're probably going to want your own gun. And that's pretty much what this book's saying. It's like things are going to get potentially to the point where it's like the government really doesn't have the authority, or nor do you want them to have the authority. So you're going to want a gun or a pitchfork to, take up arms.
Yep.
The unfortunate side of things is that when they get to the bottom here and they're like, hey, take up, up against a heavily armed knight on horseback. If I shoot a public official and then they can't find me and they think I'm in the mountain, they will smoke me with a drone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They'll just be like, hey, somewhere over here, napalm, hit that. Boom. Burn it. You know what I'm saying? So like we teeter on kind of two sides. I don't necessarily completely agree with them on like these points going forward, because it's kind of like there is equality of, war here going on, but domestically, like we have a lot more technology than maybe they, in Africa, this probably holds true.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about their government flying like a robot into their house. So then going into the advantages and disadvantages of the scale of violence, another variable that helps determine whether there are large governments or whether there are few large governments or many small ones is the scale of an organization required to deploy the prevailing weapons. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
World War II. Boots on the ground, everybody had a Thompson or a BAR or, whatever, rifle they had. Everybody had one. Some people had two and a handgun. Right? The scale of the war could be employed on such a level that everybody could be in. Right? You didn't need to have like 100 trained dudes. Like you have individuals like like my brother and like his friends now. Like they're all very trained and they do a lot of like, the Army's heavy lifting.
Yeah.
In times when there's not a lot of action. But like say you go back to the early 2000s when we were invading Afghanistan, like everybody that was capable was there. So it's kind of like the scale of how things need to get changes with, how many people have it. You have more people that have guns, your battle's going to be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like no-brainer shit when you get into it. Like it just makes you think though for a minute. Kind of like, Wow, that makes complete sense. But that's not something you like stop. Like when you're sitting in traffic, you're not like, thinking about this. It's just like, interesting. War.
War.
Interesting. Yeah, so what are you thinking? You feel any type of way? You feel like you're going to go get like a rifle or bazooka or something?
I don't know. The way I used to look at guns was I just think, why do I need one? I feel like if you buy a gun, you attract a certain kind of attention or energy.
Which can be true.
Which can be true, but, you know, I feel that before I get a gun, first I want to know how to use one properly, just because shooting a gun for the first time last week kind of opened my eyes a lot to how proper you have to be with a gun, how safe you have to.
There's a lot of technique.
There's a lot of technique to it.
We talk about the couch militia here before. And all those guys are like, got guns and this, that, and the other thing, and they're not in shape, and like they don't like to work out.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot more to be said about all of those things that we put up. They're like, yeah, you can all have guns, but like, if an Army Ranger unit shows up at your fucking neighborhood and you're on the wrong side of that business, it's not going to matter how trained you guys are.
Yeah,
like they're going to tactically roll through your neighborhood and just mop you up.
Yep.
So like, armed knights on horseback.
Exactly.
So it's something I like to say a lot that's way too aggressive, but it really isn't if you get people to think about it. It's like your fundamental goal, especially when you're raising children, is you want to make them hard to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the reason people don't look at that, they're like, oh my God, killing, murder? Right? But that shit happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Right? Cars can kill you. People can kill you. Shit,
Natural causes.
If you're out swimming in the wrong waters, a whale could scoop you up.
Yep.
Right? Free Willy. Shout out.
Like an Uber.
Yeah. So there's so many things that could kill you. Like coronavirus is like it's just one of millions of things.
Right.
So why wouldn't you want to be so well-rounded on as many levels as possible so you could be like, I'm good. Like people ask me all the time, like one of my neighbors is a real joker. He's always like, why do you get up so early to work out? Why do you go to jiu-jitsu on Saturday mornings? Why are you going there after work? Like, why are you always going to the gym? Like, literally every time I see him, it's like, because normally when I see him, I have like a gym bag with me.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I want to be hard to kill. I don't know what the fuck to say to you. And he's like, what do you worry about somebody killing you for? I'm like, I'm not. Good luck. Right? I can outrun you.
Yeah.
I'm scrappy. I like have no kill energy inside me. So it's like, that's because I just behave like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's so many people that you walk around and you're like, you see them and you're like, wow, you're really vulnerable. Like if somebody made a choice to like hurt you right now, it would be nothing. It would be like breaking a twig.
Right.
And like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want to be someone that they can just like, under any circumstance, if somebody tries to shoot me, if somebody tries to choke me, if somebody hits me with a car, somebody tries to crash into my car while I'm driving it, like I'm like, it's not like I'm going around like, oh my God, somebody's going to attack me. I'm just like aware that could happen. And, you respect as such. Like cancer can kill you.
Yeah.
You're smoking cigarettes. You're obviously a little easier to kill. Like if you eat McDonald's every day for lunch, heart disease is going to kill you. You're easier to kill than me. It's not just violence. It's everything.
It's everything.
I drink more water than you.
Boom.
Dehydrated. Fucking.
Yeah, go pee yellow somewhere.
All right, so I'm going to skip over a couple of these sections because I like highlighted stuff, but it's more for like me than it is to benefit any people here.
Mm-hmm.
This book is a difficult read because it makes you think a lot. It makes you stop and like you got to like process stuff. Like
right.
Like you can't just keep reading. Like you want to break this book into like 10 pages or less sections, probably, if I had to guess. If you sit down and tell me you crushed out 30 pages of this book in a time, I'm going to be like, are you okay? Right? Do you have a lazy eye now?
Yeah, right.
So we're up to page 97 with just like the facts. And I think this is, it's almost a 400-page book. So you're getting into it. But one thing that in this chapter, which is called The Last Days of Politics, this section is called Disdain as a Leading Indicator. Right? So before we even get into this, we know it's going to be good because we got a shitload of disdain in our country right now. So moral outrage against corrupt leaders is not an isolated historical phenomena, but a common precursor of change. Right? So this book was written in 97. It's calling it out in 97. So like we're all like, how long has this been going on? Right? They're talking about it almost
like 30 years ago. 40?
Yeah, 25.
25.
No big deal.
I can't think.
It's okay, dude. We're just dropping bombs here.
Yeah.
It happens again and again whenever one error gives way to another, whenever technological change has divorced the old forms from the new moving forces of economy, moral standards, moral standards shift, and people begin to treat those in command of the old institutions with growing disdain. This widespread revulsion comes into evidence well before people developed a new coherent ideology of change, right? So doesn't it feel like 97, by the way?
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel like right now there's people that are pissed off at everybody in power? Everybody is mad at somebody. Everybody in office has somebody that fucking hates them, right? There's not a single person in office right now who doesn't have someone completely opposing them, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unique that, and over 20 years ago, this was saying like, hey, like it's going to get worse. And today, when you look up, you're like, hey, do we agree upon anything? Everybody hates the government. We kind of agree upon that, but we have zero agreement on change. There's moral standards are changing daily. We have political disagreements, and nobody's agreeing on like a direction to head in because we are in between the industrial age and the information age. I could say that we're closer into the information age than we are closer
to the industrial
age.
Mm-hmm.
I could say we're in the information age now. We make nothing in our country anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Everything's information. It's value. That's what we're doing right now. We're literally creating content with people, are paying for. Like everything is transmissible. I had an idea a while ago, like when the Apple iPad Touch, like those little ones are the.
Yeah.
And call me liar, call me not. You can ask my ex-girlfriend and my friends at the time. I wanted to get like 10 of those and make not fake Instagram accounts, but put an Instagram account on each one of them and just upload content. Like one of them was like, one of the accounts we had was like strapped and sexy. It was just like girls with guns, right? Whatever. I was trying to get whatever.
Yeah.
And then like I caught so much like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? That's dumb. This and everything. And it wasn't just that. It was like car pages and gun pages, like the different shit. And I got distracted and caught so much like just like blah attention from it. I'm just like, all right, maybe this is a bad idea. And then fast forward like 5 years later, people have like million followers on Instagram, and they don't even have their face posted. They're just posting pictures and monetizing that. And I'm literally like, this will be the last time that I listen to anybody else's opinions on this. Right. That was the last opportunity that I probably missed on. That or the IV bank idea. But that was just, I just didn't want to do that. That was just, fuck that. It was a good idea.
Bags
but it was
and
just
the needles.
too much work with the whole, rules.
Too many rules.
Too many rules. So, it doesn't seem like we're going to be agreeing upon anything anytime soon. Right? Which brings us in like to one of the coolest chapters in this book was the last days of the Holy Mother Church. Right? Which like I've talked to you about like the church before and how corrupt they were. And this whole one section goes into like exactly what the church was doing, what the church was like then versus what our government is like then. And that church fell apart so horribly, leading to the Dark Ages, which was like not a great time in human history. Literacy dropped. Numeracy dropped. Like nobody could read books. Books weren't even being printed.
It's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Not good. Let's hope they fix our electrical grid before all this stuff falls apart.
Oh, shit.
Right? So, trying to find some good stuff here. This is kind of good.
Is that that book you gave me the example about why there's no meat on Fridays and stuff?
Is that in here?
Yeah. Is it from that, or is it from another book you told me that from?
I don't know if it goes over that.
Mm.
I've read a few books on the Catholic Church. Boy.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just a business.
Yeah, it was. It was. That's why it's hard for me to take religious people seriously because of that.
Yeah.
I value people's religions, and I value the need for like a higher power, and I value people's, commitment to that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are so caught up into the church, I look at you. Unfortunately, I look at you like a fool, because I'm like, dude, you're just victimized by an organization that's taken way more from this earth than it's given back.
Yep.
Right. And, you can say like, oh, no, my church does good things. And I'm like, if you want to sit down at a table across from me, we can bullet box. Like, we'll just say one fact after another until you just give up, because I will bury you with facts on the church that's just like,
Yeah.
Dude, the church is a mafia.
It is.
The mafia.
Yeah, bro.
Probably the cleanest one of all time. It's not even that clean, but they're clean at doing things, I guess.
Bro, they charge you $500 to splash fucking water on your baby's head. So talk to me about that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess that's better. I mean, abort. We'll just
Next.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Chapter 7. It takes us a little while to get into chapter 7 because of all the chapters leading up to chapter 7. It's 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to catch you slipping.
Good counting.
But this is when we get into cryptocurrency. This is the crypto chapter.
Oh, Jesus, back in 97?
Right. So in 97, we're talking about cryptocurrency. There's no Bitcoin. There's no name for it yet, but we really start getting into the transcending of locality chapter, right? And locality meaning like where you're living. Locality, we're local to Bucks County, PA. Transcending meaning like we don't have to live here if we don't want to. We can be wherever we want.
Yeah.
We cannot, because we decided to build a business that requires us to build houses in a certain area. So maybe that's something we think about in the next company we start, Gilmar. Do something a little bit more mobile, like a podcast or YouTube channel.
Yeah, something like that.
So like ultimately, they still call it cyberspace back then. I hate that word, cyberspace. It's just not space.
All right, Star Trek.
It's all right. So cyberspace transcends locality. It involves nothing less than an instantaneous sharing of data everywhere and nowhere, all at once.
Huh.
Right? So it's always there. You're sharing it to nowhere if nobody's looking for it, but it's being shared. This podcast is out there. It exists on the internet. But if nobody is currently watching it right now, who's it playing to? Is it just playing?
Huh.
Fuck.
It's queued up.
It's just there, though.
Yeah, it's just there.
It's just waiting. Isn't that insane? So an entire world is being built separate from our local world where things just like exist infinitely.
Crazy.
Don't eat mushrooms and read this book.
I might, though.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
All right. So we're just going to skip ahead because I got 3 tabs on this
Let's
page.
go.
Dude. Look at that. 3 tabs
It's
up.
a good page.
This is a good page.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to start with it, but I was like afraid of when I was like looking through what I highlighted in this book this morning. I was like, oh, what are we going to talk about? I remember the book, but like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
I was like, let's just skip to this. Let's just skip to this. And this is just basically going through the stages of the information age. And the first stage, at this point, the net or the internet is no more than an exotic delivery system for catalogs. Like in the beginning, like nobody listening probably understands what a catalog is, but there used to be like mini filing cabinets with information in them. They were miniature. They were like little things, and you would slide through them, and that's how you would access library books. And then ultimately, they put those little like things of information onto computers. So they basically just put all like the hard data of it, and you'd have to search through it like very aggressively. And until there was like search engines created, which like Google wasn't the first search engine. Anything that was searchable back then you needed to create like a set of rules and like parameters in order for you to go find the information.
Right.
And then Google like kind of connected all that together among other companies, but they did it the best. And then the second stage, an intermediate stage of the internet, an intermediate stage of the internet, commerce will employ information technologies in a way that would have been impossible in the industrial era, such as long-distance accounting and medical diagnosis. More examples of these new applications of advanced computational power are spelled out below. Okay. Let's see. Not going to spell it out. If I didn't highlight it, it's going to... The pages are typed small in this book. And then 3, a more advanced stage, which is where we are now. A more advanced stage will mark the transition to true cyber commerce. Not only will transactions occur over the net, but they will migrate outside the jurisdictions of nation states.
Crazy.
Purchasing like through eBay. I can buy things from Canada.
Yep.
Buy things from anybody. Most of our stuff is purchased, through China.
Yep.
Payment will be rendered in cyber currency. Profits will be booked into cyber banks. Boy, to the moon.
To the moon, son.
1997, they're talking about Bitcoin, Binance, Coinbase, coin wallets,
PayPal's, shit like that.
PayPal, everything. Right here. Many transactions will not be subject to taxation. Right? And that's the crux of this book.
Yeah.
Right. We'll get into a couple little things here, but that sentence in and of itself is what the fundamental like my takeaway from this book, the fundamental problem that we have is how do we kill the government and be successful? Mm-hmm. The cyber currency and the way it was engineered, the way we have it today, was set up to be transparent, right? Drug dealers don't use Bitcoin anymore and things like that because it's easy to track them. It's easy to track fraud. If you were to pay a politician with some Bitcoin, it'd be so easy for the federal government to figure it out.
Yeah, everything's on a blockchain.
Right? So honesty, this book is fundamentally about honesty. Right? The more honest and transparent your business is or your practices are, the more money you will reap in this next century. Right? Because everyone that is listed as corrupt is going to hang. Maybe actually hang.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that. I don't know in our like things have deteriorated pretty quickly over the last 2 years. So you might get that bad. But previously, like had I read this book before 2020, had I read this book, I'd be like, I'm going to invest in crypto. And it seems like things are going to get rocky soon. But over the last 2 years, this book dives into all of what happened in the last 2 years. Maybe not like, hey, on April 2nd, we're going to shut down. Like all of that power grab, cryptocurrency, the government running their debt up, the dollar devaluing, how taxation is being managed, right? The government this year is grabbing tax money like it's never before. All that money that they gave you through those stimulus systems, they were able to track all of that, how you used it, right? Cryptocurrency is a huge one. The debate on how you pay taxes. Do you pay taxes? They want their tax money. If I'm earning cryptocurrency but I'm not in the country, how are they going to tell me to pay taxes on my Coinbase account? Look, cryptocurrency isn't in the United States. It's on the internet. The software is on the internet. None of this, there's no physical need. You're going to start struggling with paying taxes because nothing is going to be bolted to the ground.
Yep.
Right? Why am I paying the police for protection when my surveillance camera system and the drone that flies through my house is doing the job for them? And then the robot that's got the machine gun tacked to his arm comes in and vaporizes anybody, right? And I just saw a commercial the other day for a drone that flies through your house.
I saw that. Yeah.
So, like, what are you paying for? Private security, all of these things are all going to be more and more prevalent. We pay for security at the mall. It's a low level in our country, but if you go to other countries, it's nothing to see security with rifles or guns or armored vehicles. It's like, are those police? No. They're private security. Who pays them? Whoever they're protecting.
Yep. I've seen it.
So it's like, if you're a sovereign individual, and like say we're sovereign boys, right?
Sovereign
SBs,
boys,
dude.
SBs, baby.
for life.
Yeah.
To the moon. SPs for life. We're going to have security. I don't give a shit what you do with the police. You pay taxes. I don't care. You guys need the police? Good. So you, like, all that stuff's just gonna, like, all those ideas are going to change, and they are, like, on the cusp of changing now. People are demanding for change of ideals, but they don't know what ideals they want. That's really dangerous.
Yeah.
So right now it's leaving it up to everybody's like, we'll go this way, we'll go that way, we'll try this, we'll try that. But, like, this book spells out where we should go. And if we ever get a politician on here, I'm definitely gonna ask them to, like, read this book and then talk to me about it, because there's a lot of things in here that if you had a chance to sit down and, like, talk to someone like AOC, I'd love her to read this book and then sit down with me and then be like, how do you validate the way you feel? I mean, obviously, like, one book's not going to change the way somebody feels,
Right.
but this book was written in the past, and a lot of this 90% of what I've read in this book has already happened. So what's exciting about this book is, like, that 10 other percent, I'm going to grab that 10%. Right? I'd be a billionaire if I read this book at 8 years old.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? I would have been ready.
I'm ready for it all.
Ready. The time is now.
Do any books exist like that for
Autobots? Assemble.
Do any books exist like that for, that would have came out today or a couple years ago recently that could then tell they're basically speaking on 50 years from now or 30 years from now?
Yeah, so there's a book that I just bought the paperback version, and my wife and I made a point to buy the paperback and not, like, the Kindle version in case it gets canceled.
Good idea.
And that book is called San Francisco.
Okay.
Like San Francisco.
Right.
And the book literally just came in last week maybe. And I'm really excited to read it because it's written by what was a previous extremely liberal policy individual. And it goes into discussing, like, how the liberal movement has ruined our cities in the sense that we have mismanaged the homelessness because we've misidentified it and mislabeled it and like we look at, like, giving people housing and things like that the wrong way. And we won't get into that now, and that statement there could get me into a little bit of trouble just in and of its sense with some people, which is fine. But the book is written to kind of, like, explore the ideals of other countries and how they were successful in reducing homelessness and treating, addiction and mental health. Because a lot of, like, the way we deal with homelessness now ignores all of those things.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of funny how the people that are on the side of the fence that's supposed to be more compassionate is hurting so many people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we were listening to, like, a bio of the book or something like that in the car. And I was like, buy it, bye. She's like, all right, now I'm already doing it. I was like, dude, I need to read that because it talks a lot about, like, the economics of it and the philosophies and psychology and things like that. So we'll do one of these things. Maybe we'll do, like, one of these book things, like, once a month or something.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's a lot of good information.
If we do a book thing like this every week, people are gonna not think I'm okay. They're gonna be like, how's he read these books so fast? I'll be like,
I'm a reader. You read.
It's called not sleeping. It's really cool. So the age of the sovereign individual. As the scale of warfare falls, defense and protection will be mounted on a smaller scale. Therefore, they will increasingly be private rather than public goods provided on a for-profit basis by private contractors. This is already evident in the privatization of policing in North America. The security guard is what they're talking about. Mall security. Projections indicate that the number of private security guards will increase 24% from 24% to 40% and above. Will increase 24% to 40% above 1990 levels by the year 2005. So it's going to increase, roughly a quarter to half of what it currently was in 1990, or not, when this book was written.
Damn.
Or 1990, which was where these measurements were taken.
Right.
So by 2005, private security was like a real thing, which was definitely true in our country. At least I know people that stepped up security. You can't look at private security in the sense of a big dude with a bulletproof vest and a handgun in a suit. Private security are ring cameras.
Yeah.
Private security are the Nest, or like all those things. Like, there are people that now are concerned with having cameras on their homes that if we had sold them a home in 98 and we're like, hey, you want to put cameras on the house? They'd be like, what do we need cameras for?
Yeah.
Now it's everybody's got a ring camera.
Everybody.
So private security is extremely more prevalent. So when you're reading this book, you can't take things like what they're saying and just go so black and white with it. Like, private security is it security, and is it not attached to the government? Private security.
VPN, would that be considered private security?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Virtual preferred network.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you don't know what that is, look into it. Jeez. All right. Should we get into the Clintons?
Yeah, let's do it real quick.
Should we do it?
Why not? I don't know much about them, but
Yeah.
I know some bad things.
All right. The pot calls the kettle black. Anyone who has followed the reports in our newsletter, Strategic Investment, during the 1990s will immediately recognize the irony in the Clinton administration's posturing about Samper, which is an individual. We'll kind of go over what he did, I guess. There is credible evidence that the U.S. President Bill Clinton has done everything Samper is accused of, and worse. If you would not take our word for it, Clinton's background is highlighted in gaudy detail in two well-researched books by authors on opposite sides of the political divide. I now own both these books. So, Roger Morris, who takes generally a left-wing perspective, was a national security officer in the Nixon administration, as well as a senior aide to Dean Acheson, President Lyndon Johnson, and Walter Mondale. Morris has a doctorate from Harvard University, and his book, Partners in Power, details a sordid past for Clinton that makes Samper seem like a Boy Scout. And there's just like a small section about this. And the whole reason is that, like, how like, they're just going into how corrupt our government is. There's 97. How corrupt our government is. And, like, that as, like, indications is like, hey, like, things are about to change because, like, it cannot get any worse than this.
Yeah.
Morris alleges that Bill Clinton became a CIA recruit and spent his student days at Oxford monitoring anti-Vietnam War activists. As Morris sees things, like, I'm going to read this book. I've read a little bit about this, and some of this stuff holds a lot of weight.
Crazy.
Student days at Oxford. Morris sees things. Clinton remained a CIA asset through his period as governor, facilitating a CIA drug and gun running operation centered in Mena, Arkansas, which, like, he's in charge of, right? And that was called Fast and Furious. That whole operation was literally called Fast and Furious.
Interesting.
So little people know this, that the United States government got caught drug running and running guns to South America, and the way I could be correctable in this statement, but I'm pretty sure the way they got caught was a gun that was taken off the streets, like, it went through the court system, ended up killing a law enforcement officer somewhere else. And they were like, wait a minute, this gun is registered in evidence someplace else. And they were like, wait a minute, none of these guns are here. Wait a minute, where are all these guns at? I was like, oh shit, the CIA was giving them to guerrillas and shit to fight wars.
Yeah.
So, Morris seems to indict the CIA for this whole drug trafficking rather than entertaining the possibility that Clinton threw in with corrupt faction of one agency, which seems more probable. Either interpretation, however, still suggests that the main covert intelligence agency of the U.S. government either directly or indirectly participates in organized drug running on a large scale. If the CIA is not an adjunct of organized crime, it is tripping dangerously close to it. So basically all of that shit happened underneath Bill Clinton's watch. And there's like a couple little bit of, there's a decent paper trail of him being like, hey, don't look over here. I did not run those drugs.
I'll do that. Do that.
I did not do that. That sound like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, a little bit. Gen A.
Wait a minute, does Forrest Gump sound like Bill Clinton?
Or does Bill Clinton sound like Forrest Gump?
Gen A. Hillary.
Oh shit, who was that? I don't know.
It was, dude. It was. Oh my god, did we just open a can of worms? I can't go back.
Was that Bill or Forrest?
Hillary.
I don't know which one is who.
You said to run. I did not do it.
I don't know who it is, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
I feel like this, but we'll leave it at this. We got a whole bunch of other shit, but we're going to close it out talking about, since 1859, it has been evident that the whole drama of life in the human, the animal, or the vegetable kingdom consists of a continuous struggle for survival, in which those species or cultures that are nearest to each other may be the greatest rivals. How dangerous is that statement?
Mm-hmm. Drop bomb on it.
These ideas have been so powerful that it has been impossible for anyone to think about the nature of humanity or the problems of morality since the time in which they were developed, with or without responding to them. So, like, we're talking about Hitler.
Yeah. The
Right.
old
Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. If you didn't get into that, Hitler, Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, like all of those people can be considered social Darwinists, right? Social Darwinism is like the thought that, like, hey, the Aryan nation is the strongest, or maybe not the strongest, maybe the Aryan nation is the favored, or whatever the parameter is. Like, I am going to take defensive action to make sure that stays true, or whatever. Which is what Hitler did, right? And his book, like Mein Kampf, is basically, like, I'm pretty sure Mein Kampf is just translates into
that was my struggle.
Yeah, it probably says it on here somewhere. I didn't highlight it. Struggle for survival.
Oh, okay.
Right. And like we'd have to talk about, like, the history and, like, the type, like the type of world it was in Germany back then for that to all prevail. But it's alarming to think that, like, today we don't have, like, people say we have the racial thing going on, and it exists to agreeable or disagreeable levels. But what we do have is, right versus left, right? You have vaccine versus no vaccine, mask versus no mask. So, like, you really have to, like, this book, it doesn't spare the fact that things are going to get nasty, right? With all this disruption and shrinking of governments and, decentralized money and all of this, like, this book also talks a lot about the violence of things and, like, what people should be prepared for. And chivalry is coming back. And chivalry back in the day, chivalrous knights. Like, knights were basically biker gangs.
Yeah.
Back in the day. They raped and pillaged. They murdered people. They did very little protecting of shit. They were basically just the toughest dudes around with the swords. They had things their way. They were the peak of society, right? So you have to really, really think about these sovereign individuals and chivalry, and, like, if there are more powerful people, more of them, they have less power, but there's more of them. So there won't be like a Bezos, but there'll be, thousands, maybe a million Collins, which there aren't now, right? Like there's a little bit of danger there, because you have to worry that, with the with all this information and things like that, that there's a lot of manipulation of this information. So it's like, it's critical to read books like this and then go back and like explore the history that books like this extrapolate on, like the Catholic Church or Hitler or the fall of West and East, the German, like the Berlin Wall. It's important and imperative for us to like go back and look at that so that we don't get caught up in that bullshit. Because right now I look out and I see like, unfortunately, more and more people getting caught up in that bullshit, when the time is now to take advantage of like increasing your financial survivability and things like that, because it could potentially get very rough, and more people are going to get money, but less people are going to get money.
Yeah.
So think about like, right? Everybody wants more people to have money, but that still means a lot of people still have to lose. So, this book basically sets you up to think like not a loser in the new information age.
I can see that.
So, The Sovereign Individual, kicks ass. It is a good book. It was hard to read at times. It was just kind of like, sometimes it just like over extrapolates on things. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Beat it into your head.
Okay, I get it. Yeah. But few observers of the late 20th century had their fingers so precisely on the pulse of global political and economic realignment, ushering in the new millennium. Their bold prediction of the disaster on Wall Street and blood in the streets was born out of was a bestseller, and then the Great Awakening just weeks before the coup with like the fall of Soviet Russia. Like these guys spent a good part of their life in it, thinking about it, and they wrote about it. So there you go.
It's mine now.
It's yours now.
Oh, there's $1 in it.
Yeah, that's what. So I use $1. I don't know. I used to think it was funny, but I was like, oh, I'll use $1, and at the end of the book, I'll give it to myself. And now $1 doesn't mean that much, so it's like I gotta put like $100 in there.
yeah, that's
you know what I'm saying. Like if I put $100 bill in each book I read, and then like that was my allowance.
Yeah,
you know how many books I'd be reading,
dude.
I read a lot of books.
Yeah,
I should do that. Maybe that's how I pay myself.
Put a Bitcoin in each book.
Oh, yeah, put 60 G's in each book, dude. The fuck.
A tenth of one,
dude. If I had a Bitcoin for each book I read, we would have paid our way to 1,000 subscribers. I would have just called YouTube up and just be like, "Can you just give me 1,000? You just start me out with 1,000."
I got mad Bitcoin.
I just got mad coin, dude. I'm sovereign individual. You know what I'm saying? You better start negotiating with me. I'll call the government. You just have like your own phone to the government. Just like pick it up.
It's like, a red phone.
What's up, dude?
Yeah.
Who's in today? Yeah. Was any of them Clintons around?
Any of the Clintons?
Yeah. No. I don't want to talk to them. No.
Hey, Andrew, what's going on?
Yeah, the Clintons are cool. The Clintons are cool. They're badass people. I don't particularly care for them in their ideals, but you can't discount. Like if you read about the Clintons and then you just hate them, you failed. You failed yourself. If you read about the Clintons and you're just like, wow, anything's possible. That's how I feel when I read about them. Wow. I'm like, wow, these people they're doing this for real. What can I get away with? You know what I'm saying? Like, how, it's just, it's interesting because Hillary, ran for president of the Democratic Party, and a lot of like what people think Democrats are, they're like, oh, we're gonna take them rich and give to the poor. It's like, no, like Hillary Clinton got rich as shit trading on Wall Street while her president was her husband was like a politician, and then she did like they've both benefited immensely from behind closed doors transactions, which a lot of politicians have. So my closing theory or idea would be to pay politicians extremely well based upon performance. right? You don't perform well, you don't get paid. 4 years of presidents? Sorry. But if your policies put the United States into a greater position, dude, give them $100 million. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, here's a bonus.
Here's a bonus, boy. For everything you do right, $1 million. Bonus. Like if our president comes out, like if Barack Obama, he was doing pretty well. Definitely wasn't poor. Came out of office and was like, sorry. We didn't make as much money as I thought I would because the healthcare plan did not go as planned. It's like, oh shit, well, sorry. I mean, we thought you were a real good guy. But like, you know, it was a good idea. We voted for it. It was a good idea, but like you just didn't execute on it. So like, we're just not going to pay you as well. But if Obama had gone into office and somehow, which I never thought, like there was just not the fact of making government bigger, we already covered it in this episode. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
You make healthcare universal, ask the military how much money they got. They literally get a cut of all of that. Somehow or another. Like I've read stuff, like it just the trickle down to the government. It's like, well, we got to buy guns. We're going to buy some syringes and masks and stuff. And you load up some guns into that order. So let's check out some extra guns. You know? So it's just, I don't know.
Huh.
It's just a book, dude. It's just a book.
Yeah, but do you feel that if you paid politicians based on their performance, that they would go out of their way to do even more?
You would attract
fucked
better
up
people.
shit?
You would attract better people.
You think so?
You would, like,
oh yeah.
How many people in just like my sphere alone that like you know or have met or know of their existence that are all not in politics, and how successful are they?
Yeah.
How is it that I know very few people in politics? Tons of successful people. None of them go into politics. Why? It's a waste of fucking time.
Yeah.
You can make so much more change happen from the outside with your dollars. Right? Influence. Right? Nobody respects politicians. Nobody wants to hear from them. Get up there, collect my taxes, try and do something good in your 4 years, and then just get the hell out without doing something and getting caught. Like, that's how we're feeling. Like, well, whatever. People are like, you vote, you bitch. Like, why you waste your time voting? Like, that's how people feel about each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, if you paid them on performance, you would attract better people. You know, when you caught them corrupt, like, you would have, like, you don't need to do corrupt shit and steal from people. We're going to pay the shit out of you. If you don't do your job, out. Like, if you don't get paid your first time in whatever office you hold, are you going to do that off? Are you going to try again? No, you're going to go get another job. Right?
Yeah.
Very few people are like me that like fail a whole bunch of times in the beginning and they're like, nah, I'm going to keep going. This construction thing will work itself out. We'll figure this out. And then you make money. But like majority of people are like, 4 years was brutal. And I mean, I have zero to show for it. Maybe I won't do this again. Right? Mm-hmm. You have AOC who's like, take from the rich. Yeah. She's at a dinner in like a $50,000 dress, and each one of those plates costs $50,000.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Are you really helping us? Right? I think like the dudes from Barstool Sports, like she was talking about how her Puerto Rican grandmother didn't have any money and things like the state and all this, and you know the people from Barstool or some newspaper or something like started her grandmother a GoFundMe and raised over $100,000 for AOC's grandmother in Puerto Rico.
Jesus.
AOC shut it down. Gave all the money back. It's like, okay, well, you're going to go on there and say how like in need and how impoverished your grandmother is. It's like, how much money do you make?
Yeah, right.
You idiot. Right? Oh, you don't take care of your you're getting up on stage and saying like, oh, the whole world should take care of my grandmother. Before you do, fly your ass to Puerto Rico and do something. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Stop squawking off. And then somebody does something, helps your grandmother out, and what do? No, you assholes. How dare you help my grandmother? It's like, that was the perfect example of how private industry, private security, privatization will put the money where it's needed. Right? GoFundMe is the perfect example of putting the money where it's needed. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs money, they get it. The government's like, you know what? We need to get the money to the Haitians. It's like Squidward, 6 years later. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what do you mean? Like those organizations at the cash register. It's like, oh, would you like to give a dollar to dogs in need? No. And they look at you like you're an asshole. It's like, well, you're an asshole because 3 cents for every one of those dollars actually gets to a dog. You got 97 cents of administration in there. People are making fucking who knows how much money a year running this charity so we can get 3% to the like. If I ever ran a charity, it'd be like 100% goes back at least.
Yeah, totally.
Right? If I ever ran a charity, like the people that work for the charity would get paid, I wouldn't take $1. So stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pay myself a salary. I'm going to start a charity. It's like, no, you're just nonprofit business.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We're in the weeds. We're in the weeds.
It's much needed, though.
This was a good episode. I don't know that it was.
I think it was.
As long as you read the book.
It was very informational.
Gilmar is going to read the book.
I'm going to read the book. I feel that I have now a good head start on what it's about.
Did you salivate over the book? Or are you like, oh man, those pages?
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit more now?
They're all crinkled. There's $1 in it. So
are you like, hey, I'm going to read it now? Did this make you want to read it, or was this just like?
No, yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's better than reading the back of a book. Sometimes I read the back of a book and I'm like, it's very broad. But
yeah,
getting all that information definitely makes me want to like dig deeper into what's going on. And I don't know. I think if it's gonna change the way I think somewhat, or give me some insight on how the world is or how it was, then I definitely.
It's gonna make you harder to kill.
Yeah,
you will be harder to kill.
Yeah, I want that.
You know what I'm saying? I want that.
Yeah,
I want that for you, man.
Thanks.
I want that for everybody, and people get mad at me for it. It's like, why aren't you doing jujitsu? It's like, why do you keep asking me? I'm not coming. It's like, did you go to the gym? No, I didn't go to the gym. I don't need to go. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried you're a little easier to kill now. But you can't say that to people.
Oh yeah, you can't.
I think it'd be funny as shit if I did though. You'd be like, you're really easy to kill today.
Today.
Be like, yo, you look a little hungover. I could probably kill you pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's like, you better watch out. The septic truck could swipe you
out.
off the street, dude. You're out just because you were not ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
You always got to be ready.
Looking left and right.
Yeah. It's called preparedness, maybe.
Yep.
We could call it that.
Definitely.
I guess being hard to kill is synonymous with prepared.
Yeah.
Boy Scouts. Anyway, subscribe, hit the like button, head over to the YouTube. I appreciate the few people that got in early.
Yeah, I see y'all.
We restarted the YouTube channel, got a new format. The YouTube channel for the podcast has its own exclusive YouTube channel. All the past episodes are up there. Clips and shorts and things are going up daily. So check us out. Check out the YouTube. Hit subscribe. I don't even care if you don't like the show. If you could just hit that subscribe, get us up to 1,000. That'd be good. Real good. Because then we're going to have to do this whole other battle.
I don't want that.
And we've only made like $27 on this podcast so far. So we've met a lot of cool people, and we've talked about We've talked about a book now.
We've made more than just $27.
Okay. Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, we have.
Theoretically. Andrew dollars.
Andrew dollars. True.
Yeah, this is Gilmar, Andrew, Rambo over in the corner. Sovereign Individual. Shout out to Colin for introducing us to this book. Go grab a copy.